fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests. Your voice is your weapon. So, where I heard that was when I was in the Territorial Army. I was repeatedly shouting at me all the time by my sergeant, and I would explain why I'm doing a talk around voice as your weapon. So before I start, I just want to share what I think most of us know, that communication is only 7% what we say. It's the biggest proportion is body language, and then nearly 40% is your tone of voice. So how we use our tone of voice can make a massive difference to effectively communicating. You know, it's not just the words we say, it's actually a small portion, most of body language, tone of voice. And that comes into my talk today, where I'm going to be talking about how you can use your tone of voice to communicate better, some tips, and also how people in different areas of life use their tone of voice to make lots of money and stand out for the best in what they do. So, tone of voice. It's three things: volume, pitch, pace, and pauses. So these are the three main aspects of tone of voice. And we all naturally either speak loudly, quietly, or slowly, or fast, or slowly or fast. But to have good use of tone of voice, where you're using it for purpose, for reason, and you're using it to get a certain outcome, you need to vary it. You need to speak quicker and slower or louder, and use your pitch to emphasize different points and to draw people in and engage them. So that's me on the right, that's my sergeant for 3 years. I've got a lot of shouting, and literally the one thing I remember coming in the army, two things. One, that the army wasn't for me, but also if your voice is your greatest weapon. And he said that all the time, you know, because he used to shout everything to me, and also expect you to shout back, you know, yes sir. And it was like, Ronald, your weapon, your voice is your last weapon. And there's one thing I remembered. And you know, I think it is true, because you know, in life, if we want to do well, we've got to be confident, and we've got to have a loud, clear voice. And he was basically saying that, with, you know, in the army, with all the greatest weapons we have, at the end of the day, you know, if you're in a situation where you know just yourself, your voice is your greatest weapon. It's that which you can use to fight off people, you know, and I think that's one thing that I've always stuck in my mind, and that's what's been groundwork for this talk today. So, there are many areas in life where people use their voice, particularly their tone of voice, to have an outcome, and that is their greatest weapon of their job. So, if we look at armed police, if we go to most stations in London, in King's Cross, at least once or twice a week, you see armed police, and apparently there were over 7,000 firearm incidents in the UK last year, but only 6 people who were killed by armed police. And I was reading this report, and it said the reason for that is because the police use their voice as their weapon. So basically the police disarm in crisis situations using their voice. And how they do that is they use those three things of tone of voice, pace and volume to effect. So they will repeatedly say, drop your weapon, and they basically repeat the same thing in a loud, authoritative voice. And you know, I think 3 deaths out of 6,000 firearm incidents. It's amazing, and they basically are using their voice to disarm someone and control the situation, using a authoritative, loud, repetitive tone. You know, they're doing a slow pace with lots of pauses, and that's also the best result that they can have. So again, that was 6,375 firearm offences in 2000 to 2018. Just 4 people shot dead. I think, you know, and the voice was a reason for that. So another aspect is negotiation. So when we negotiate, we use our voice, and negotiation can be, again, people in crisis situations, peace negotiators. It can be sales negotiators for, you know, £1 million deals, or it could be political negotiation. Now clearly, when you negotiate, it's a very complicated process, especially with things like Brexit, and there's a whole load of factors. So it is body language, it is knowing your subject and the words you use, but also it is partly tone of voice. And there's a Brooks Institute. It's an institute which does a lot of sales courses and a lot of sales training, and they train a lot of people who work in business, but also they train the police negotiators. And there's an article we did recently which said that people who negotiate, whether it's a police negotiator or a sales negotiator, use the same approach, the same skills. And tone of voice is one of the key points in having the outcome you want when you're doing negotiation. Because you've got to emphasise your points loud and clearly. Other times you've got to show your quiet listening voice. You've got to it's playing around with a person to show understanding and negotiation using your tone of voice by STEM. And we all negotiate on a daily basis, so it's definitely a skill that tone of voice that we use can be used in those situations, whether it's something negotiating with your boss, your appraisal, or whether it's negotiating Brexit. So surgeons. I used to work for the Royal College of Surgeons, and they were getting a lot of, even the best surgeons in the whole of the UK were getting some negative feedback about their bedside manner. And so they had an amazing outcome. There was a successful operation, which was really complicated, but the feedback was quite negative from the patient's family. And the reason that was that these surgeons afterwards would be the consultant. They'd go and visit the patient, visit the family, explain what happened, the result of the next treatment, and they were often tired, distressed, and they would, and all the patient family would hear was this tired, stressed out person, talking person jargon they didn't know. And so the best surgeons who had unbeatable records in surgery, 99% successful operations, getting lots of negative feedback. So they implemented a module in communication for all surgeons. To be a practicing surgeon, you've got to do a course in communications. So part of that was awareness of their body language and their tone of voice, and the effect it had on patients and patients' families. And 2 years afterwards, those complaints from families went shot down drastically, massive by 40%. So, unlikely people who work in surgery use tone of voice, and reduce complaints. So even surgery, tone of voice plays a massive part. Singers, obviously they use a tone of voice. Mariah Carey is one of the richest singers in the world, and also she's one of the few singers I think who can do the whole, I think it's 5-octave range, which is why she's so successful. She can do the whole, not many singers, I think there might be one who can do that in one song, do the whole octave range. And also opera singers, obviously their voice, they have, men have the lower notes, the women have a high notes, and there's a Russian opera singer last year, I think it was, who reached 800 decibels, and she cracked some glass, and it was in a beautiful record. So that's a tone of voice. Not only does it also make a great career for her, but it is possible to train your voice to reach incredible levels of vocal variety. Comedians, comedy is their weapon, tone of voice is their weapon, because most comedians will mimic, they'll do impressions. If you look at Ricky Gervais, his little, all of their funny little quirky sounds and impressions, and they use tone of voice all the time, to engage the audience and make them laugh. So tone of voice is a massive part, and this comedian here, if everyone recognises who he is. He's one of the richest in Britain, and if you go to his shows, his tone of voice, it's up and down. He does little funny impressions of us. So my last category is public speakers. So this is relevant to everyone. So this guy, anyone know who he is? Tony Robbins. So Tony Robbins, $500 million out speaking. I've been to some events, and he speaks to 50,000 people and uses tone of voice. So that's his weapon to make so much money. So the outcome is that, so the conclusion is that tone of voice is useful as a tool, a communication tool to everyone, but particularly for Toastmasters. And my 2 tips for you are, if you want to use your tone of voice for better effect, consider the outcome. So if you're the police, your outcome is you want them to obey your command. And if you're a comedian, you want to be happy and be in an emotional state. So.